words spoken that night were forever embedded into Lueva's thought process. It didn't change how she thought, but it made her think more rational and not impulsively. The months that followed were nothing like the battlefield. They were worse in quieter ways. The United Empire of Earth Army Officer Candidate School was designed to dismantle certainty. Every scenario, every simulation, every strategic exercise forced candidates to confront the same question from different angles. What do you save when you cannot save everything? For most candidates, the answer shifted. For Lueva Brentworth, the struggle was learning when not to act. The first trial came during a fleet evacuation scenario. 3 orbital stations were under threat, but resources allowed evacuations for only 2. Cadet Brentworth initially attempted to reroute medical transports, attempting to improvise the 3rd rescue corridor. The instructors shut the simulation down.
Your intervention saved some,
one evaluator said,
but it destabilized the fleet escort. Enemy interception probability increased by 42%.
More would have died. The lesson was recorded in cold numbers, she learned. In multi-theater command exercises, she began to change. Not softer, sharper. She no longer chased every casualty marker on the holographic display. Others quietly started requesting assignment to her command groups, because when Lueva Brentworth made a decision, chaos seemed to narrow around it. Word spread quickly through the OCS cohort. She was the candidate who had once stabilized 3 soldiers in a decompression corridor under live fire. She was also the candidate who, during a disaster response simulation, sealed an entire corridor of wounded personnel behind a blast door to prevent atmospheric collapse across the station. The decision preserved 900 lives. 7 inside the corridor were lost. She didn't speak about it afterward, but that night she rewrote the station triage protocols from memory and submitted them to the instructors. Near the end of the program, the Commandant observed her final evaluation personally. A full-scale wargame. Fleet assets. Ground forces. Civilian population centers. Every variable designed to fracture command candidates under pressure. Halfway through the scenario, an instructor deliberately injected a familiar variable, a medical distress signal, pinned unit, high casualties, limited rescue window.
This is the same trap as was before,
Lueva whispered under her breath. She studied the holographic map for a long moment. Then she redirected 2 armored divisions, sacrificing a forward listening post to preserve the extraction corridor. The rescue succeeded. The wargame ended with the lowest projected casualty rate in that training cycle. The Commandant said nothing during the exercise, but afterward he closed the report with a single notation.
Cadet demonstrates surgical command philosophy with impeccable precision.
On the morning of graduation, Earth was quiet. The parade ground overlooked a horizon where the curve of the planet met the darkness of orbit. Above them, civilian transports glided along glowing traffic lanes like slow-moving constellations. Rows of candidates stood in formation. Names were called. Commissions granted. When hers came,
Cadet Brentworth, Lueva.
she stepped forward. Those of her peers cheered. For the first time since enlistment, the surname remained intact on her record. The Commandant handed her the insignia. Second Lieutenant, UEE Army. He held her gaze for a moment, longer than protocol required.
You have learned the arithmetic, he said quietly.
Yes, sir.
But never forget the cost.
She nodded once.
I won't, sir.
As the ceremony ended and the officers dispersed, Lueva paused near the edge of the platform overlooking Earth. Far above the atmosphere, faint streaks of light marked ships entering orbital lanes. Somewhere beyond those lanes were frontiers, patrol zones, distress calls that hadn't happened yet. Behind her, new officers laughed and celebrated the end of training. Ahead of her lay something else entirely: responsibility, command, and the quiet understanding that the next time a decision cost lives, it would be hers alone to make, not as a medic, but as an officer of the United Empire of Earth. When you become the property of the UEE, you find that time is never wasted. Earlier the next morning, Lueva grabs her issued armor, her helmet, and makes her way towards the transport as it is ready to lift off. Lueva was leaving Earth. The transport shuttle Ardent Wing descended through the cloud layers of Earth with a low mechanical hum, its thrusters glowing softly against the night sky. Far below, the lights of the UEE Army Officer Candidate School Complex faded into the distance. She tried to close her eyes, as if to file away the memory, not knowing if she would ever return. Inside the troop compartment, Lueva, now a lieutenant, sat quietly. Her dark hair, tied in an unfamiliar tight French braid, brushed against the collar of her newly issued Army Medical Service Corps armor. She hated that part. It was uncomfortable. Her duty orders sat on the seat beside her along with her helmet. She wore a yellow UEE Army insignia rested on one shoulder, while the red medical caduceus marked the other. The armor still felt new. Not uncomfortable like her hair, just unfamiliar. She looks down at the seat beside her. A small holographic slate hovered in the air, displaying her official assignment orders. Unit: 102nd Marine QRF Quick Reaction Force. Fleet: 2nd Naval Fleet. Position: Chief Medical Officer. Status: Immediate deployment. She read the line again. Chief Medical Officer. She sat back and her mind began to wander. She thought about everything that she went through to get to this point. She was only 19, a doctor since 12, and now a chief medical officer, a feat others had spent years progressing to become. Her young nerves began to flutter. She started to worry. Then she remembered the words that her mother had told her.
Lueva, don't be concerned with what others think. I believe in you. Believe in yourself.
The ship's loadmaster taps Lueva on the shoulder, signaling her to don her helmet. Just then, the shuttle's pilot called back through the intercom.
Lieutenant Brentworth will be docking in 4 minutes. You'll be transferring directly to the fleet carrier UEE Krugeri.
Understood.
Lueva replied calmly, but internally she felt the quiet weight of the moment. Officer Candidate School had changed her. Before OCS, she had been a medic focused on the soldier directly in front of her. OCS forced her to think differently. Now, every decision carried a wider radius. Morale, operational tempo, strategic sustainability. An officer didn't just save lives, they preserved the ability of others to keep fighting. The shuttle broke through the last cloud layer, and there it was, orbiting above Earth like a steel continent. The UEES Krugeri, a Bengal-class carrier and the lead ship of the 2nd Naval Fleet. Massive docking arms stretched outward from its hull, while fighter craft drifted in patrol formations around it. Dropships moved like insects between the ship and nearby escort frigates. Warships always had a certain silence to them, even surrounded by motion. They were machines built for long wars. The shuttle glided into a docking bay. Magnetic clamps locked. A soft thud echoed through the cabin.
Docking complete.
The hatch opened. Cool, recycled air flowed inside. Lueva stood, lifted her helmet, and stepped onto the deck of the fleet carrier. Marines moved with fast discipline through the hangar. Dropships were being refueled. Cargo drones floated overhead carrying ammunition crates. Mechanics worked along the wings of a Scorpius fighter. Everything moved with quiet urgency. A tall Marine approached her. His armor bore the insignia of a senior enlisted NCO.
Lieutenant Brentworth?
Yes?
Sergeant Major Rourke.
102nd Marine Quick Reaction Force.
He looked her up and down once, not disrespectfully, just assessing. Marines always did that.
Didn't expect Command to send us a Chief Medical Officer straight out of OCS.
Neither did I, Sergeant Major.
That answer earned the smallest hint of a grin.
Fair enough.
He gestured toward a waiting transport vehicle.
Company commanders waiting in the briefing room.
As they moved through the massive interior corridors of the carrier, the sounds of the fleet hummed around their Menjin reactors, distant cum traffic, the steady rhythm of a ship built for constant readiness. Eventually, they reached a briefing chamber overlooking the fighter hangar. Inside stood a single officer, a Marine colonel. He turned as Lueva entered.
Lieutenant Brentworth.
She snapped to attention.
Sir.
Colonel Arlen Voss, Commanding Officer, 102nd Marine QRF.
He studied her file tablet briefly.
I read about your actions during training deployments.
He looked up.
Combat medical intervention under live fire, experimental stabilization techniques, unauthorized oxygen sharing.
Lueva said nothing as the colonel continued.
High casualty environments, limited time, no perfect decisions.
He paused.
Your job isn't just to treat Marines.
He pointed towards the window overlooking the hangar deck.
Your job is to keep this force operational.
Lueva looks over at the window. Hundreds of soldiers, pilots, crew. Every one of them trusting that if things went wrong, someone would be there to pull them back. She spoke quietly.
I understand, sir.
Colonel Voss studied her for a moment longer, then nodded once.
Good.
He extended a small data pad.
Welcome to the 102nd Marine Quick Reaction Force.
Lueva accepted it. Her new unit roster appeared. Hundreds of names. Future patients. Future lives she might have to save. Or fail to save. A decision she would hope not to have to make. Beyond the hangar window, the massive carrier slowly rotated as the fleet prepared to depart orbit. Colonel Voss looked back toward the stars.
Fleet jump in 2 hours.
Lueva felt something settle inside her. Not fear, not excitement. Purpose. She turned toward the exit.
Then I should begin setting up the trauma bay.
The colonel gave a faint, approving nod.
Exactly, Lieutenant.
Outside the briefing room doors, the ship pulsed with life. Dropships launched. Fighters moved into escort formation. The Second Naval Fleet was preparing to leave Earth's orbit, and somewhere out among the stars, the 102nd Marine QRF would soon be needed. For the first time since leaving officer candidate school, Chief Medical Officer Lueva Brentworth was exactly where she was meant to be.